What's up everybody, George T from The Wagon. This week we are going to install a skid plate from Pandraggers in Arizona on a really low Type 1 Beetle. I know nobody likes to admit the fact they're too low, but when your car is too low, you start running into issues like this. We definitely have damage on the horse head here from making contact. I would have to assume that if you were to check this thing for square, it's probably not too square anymore because of the damage that's happened here. We are not going to jump into fixing that right now. What we're going to do is we're going to avoid this from happening any more than it already has, because I don't think this car tracks weird or anything. I'm sure it has some issue because of this. Your horse head can't look like that and not have issues. So I called my buddy Levi up. I got this right here. Let's look at this. So this is a skid plate. So it's going to bolt on to those two bottom bolts there. And then when you hit things, it's going to allow it to just skip over it as opposed to grabbing your front horse head and bending it back. So we got to drop those two lower bolts and then put this dude on. The first thing we're going to do though is we're going to get this guy painted up. So I'm going to hit it with some 80 grit, get some bite on that dude. Actually probably some 120. And we are going to put it in some rattle can satin black, the VHT roll cage and chassis paint that I use on everything. We've got that sanded with some 120 grit. I put a little bit of acetone onto a rag. Just give it a quick wipe down. We're going to hit this dude with some rattle can VHT roll cage chassis black and satin finish. Just want to get all the crap off of this that you just sanded onto it. It's ready to spray. I find items like this are easy to hang and paint. That way you can get both sides at once. And you have a non-show side and your show side. So make sure that you take more care when spraying your showing side. Alright, so this is the paint I use. It's a VHT satin black roll bar and chassis. My favorite paint. Lays out nice. It goes direct to metal. Don't have to prime anything first. It can withstand up to 250 degrees Fahrenheit. It's pretty darn hot. Unlike the tins, I got to go a little bit lighter here. The tins I had properly prepped, and since we're going direct to metal here, I put a light coat on first. Don't forget your edges, guys. So one of the tricks I do when painting is I hit all my edges first when I'm going for my actual finish coat. That way I'm not going to go back and double up on areas. We're going to let that tack up. This is not full coverage. You can see through it in some areas. I'm just going to let that flash off for about 2 minutes, and we'll come back out and put another coat on. So I had a video that's when is too low, too low. That's too low. I mean, look at what we've done to this apron. Now, if you know you're going to go this low, prepare your car for it. You know this isn't long for the world, unfortunately, because this is the first place it's going to hit. It's the furthest out there. When you're going into driveways, if you're not familiar with it, everything has to be done at angles. You don't hit anything straight on, so you got to hit those angles to get in there. If you know you're going to go this low, be proactive and buy a skid plate so you don't end up with this damage. And when I look down this car, this beam almost looks like it has a touch of a twist down in this direction here, and I bet that this most likely has a buckle on the side. I had a 66 square back once. If you guys have seen my video where I shaved the Type 3 beam, get rid of those lower mounts, I had a 66 square back. I went to work the same way every day. Something was different this one day when I went over these railroad tracks, and it clipped my front end and folded it back. The little part that hangs down that we actually shaved in the video, it grabbed that sucker and ripped it back. If you're going to choose to live the low life, just prepare yourself for it. Simple things like this, like installing a skid plate onto a car to make sure that there's no irreversible damage done to the vehicle by driving this low. First order of business is loosening and removing these two bottom 19 millimeters. So we're going to get those dudes off of there. You like how those tabs were never folded over? It's par for the course of the rust work I found on this car. It's going to be very tight. And I think this side is in a bind. This side feels different when I'm loosening it. So this plate will not work anymore because the way it works, grabbing the two bolts would hold it, you'd fold it over and it can't turn because the two bolts are holding it captive. Well, that's not the case anymore because we're gonna have a skid plate going over these. I gotta bend those guys out of the way. I'll see if they'll come over. I doubt that they'll come over the new skid plate and latch onto it. But if not, what I'm doing is I'm gonna add some wave washers to it. Metric wave washers. You'll see these all over your VW stock. And we're going to put some Loctite on the bottom of those and make sure they get torqued. When it comes to torquing them, I'll break out my without guesswork books. We're going to find out what the torque is on these, and we're going to make sure that we tighten these to the specified torque. I've come through and cleaned that up. I just sprayed some Simple Green on the bottom there, wiped it down with an old microfiber cloth, just to get the big chunk on. Just like anything I do, I clean as I go. You can see that, and you can see that this has been hit pretty dang hard right there. That is already folded over. It should look like that right there. And even this is taking a hit. That's starting to do its bend. Those adjusters aren't straight either, so they're not actually grabbing into the teeth. I might have to address that. See how they're crooked? That means they're not actually biting in the way they should. It's more fun stuff to play with. I've hung it into place now. I've got these both just hand threaded in, and it's just going to get tightened up. You see that they're slotted up there. So you can, once you get it to a tight enough position, move it all the way up so you get as much ground clearance as possible on that dude right there. These are now tightened. It's pushed up as far as you can get it to go in there. And she's up as high as possible. Had this have been installed when these people first lowered this, you know, everybody's just in such a rush to make the freaking car look cool. Had this have been installed, that horse head damage would not exist on this car. But unfortunately, that's the way most people do things. They just rush into things like, I just need to be the cool guy. I can't be the guy with the good running car. I got to be the guy who has got the freaking clapped out junker that's so stinking low and everybody's so stoked at how low I am. Like, your car's solid, people. Do it right. This is going to help with longevity of this vehicle. And I think we've caught it early enough. He obviously does have some damage there, but it won't go on any further. And as soon as I suggested this to Jim, he said, absolutely. You know, Jim is buying this car secondhand, so he's not the one who built it. So we're trying to make it to where it's a nice solid car that Jim can enjoy for years to come. So that's it right there. Pretty simple. It's a Pandragger skid plate right there. We've got those bottoms in. These are torqued to 36 foot-pounds, is what they require. So now I'm going to pull these top ones out one at a time, put a wave washer on them as well, so they got some lock in place, and a little bit of Loctite, and torque those to 36 pounds also. Remove those plates. I've got a wave washer and Loctite on those upper bolts as well now. Wave washer and Loctite on the lowers. I would call that installation done. We've gone in and straightened those up. I pointed out in the video how crooked they were. So we've gone and actually indexed them to where that tooth is actually, they're actually biting into each other now like they should. When it was crooked like that, it was just tension holding it in place. Now it actually has the mechanical advantage of being geared and in there. There's our clearance on that skid plate. It seems low. It's only adding the thickness of that plate to it as far as the drop. And the advantage is you're no longer going to mess up your horse head. All right, guys, if you're going to live a low life, You got to do things like that skid plate down there, to make sure your car is going to survive living the low life. It's a simple thing, but as you see from the damage already existing on that horse head, it's a very important product. So hit up Levi over at pandraggers.com and get you a skid plate for the front of your Type 1 VW so you stop ruining the pan. So that's going to end this video there. Don't forget, October 3rd through the 5th in Las Vegas, Nevada, one crazy weekend, brought to you by Let's Talk Dubs Podcast, The Wagon, and the Las Vegas Volkswagen Club at the Orleans Hotel and Casino. Go to letstalkdubs.com, get your rooms booked soon. I'm going to advise you right now, they're selling out fast. So get out there, get your rooms booked. Let's have a good time in October, guys. Thanks.